Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Oh, Craig, it's Dad's weekend.
Hey, my dad is going too.
He is?
Game. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My sister is going too, and my dad's wife is going to her first Cougar football game. So it's a good old-fashioned family Cougar football weekend.
Yeah, and the place is going to be packed.
So yeah, because his dad's
nice.
weekend.
And it's a nice kickoff time. That helps too.
Not pretty good weather. It shouldn't be any precipitation. So.
I mean, you figure with a 1:30 kickoff time, all of the dads are actually going to make it to the game.
Yeah, those late kickoffs for the dads, they might have had
those are a little
too many
rough.
rounds at the coup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are, I'm 42. There are dads who have kids in college who are my age. And then I think of the dads that are older than me, and I'm like, you go and you try and, do it for a weekend. And I don't know, man, you better know your limitations.
And I am Craig Powers, and this is Podcast Versus Everyone, and I am 34, which means I'm going to be 50 when B goes to WSU.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to be an old man.
I'll be, let's see, Joshua is 12.
And this is Jeff, and he'll
be 48. 48 when my oldest goes to Wazoo.
Jeff Newser will be 48.
Yeah, how about that? Well, here's what's crazy. So, obviously as time goes on, more and more parents are electing to have kids, later. My dad, I am the age that my dad was when I was like a sophomore. Yeah, a sophomore at Wazoo.
Yeah, my dad. When I went
my kid's 12.
Yeah, when I went to Wazoo, I think my dad was 41.
Oh, I know, it's so crazy. Like my
42,
parents had
maybe.
me when they were like
42
21
maybe.
or whatever, 20. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. We're all having the kids older now. A lot of people around my age.
Wait until B is old enough to participate in rec sports.
No.
And you go, and you're like, and she's like, 6, and she's doing her first T-ball, and you're looking around, and there's like, 25-year-old parents there, 24-year-old parents there, and you're like, what the fuck, man? And they look at you like, are you 40. Her grandfather? I've gotten that look before, especially when I go to my youngest, right? So Atticus is 7. I was 35 when we had him. So anyway.
Yeah. Dad's weekend.
Yeah. Grandpa.
Do you have any, I know your dad's a Husky, but do you have any good dad's weekend memories?
Yeah. No, my dad, so my dad's a Husky fan, and he did not attend the University of Washington, but he is a hardcore, Seattle born and raised, Husky fan. Well, not born and raised. Seattle raised. That's a better way to put it. Husky fan. And my dad was always a super good sport when he came to Pullman. Like he would wear Coug gear. He would sit in the student section with me and cheer for the Cougars. The only time he didn't was when he sat with me in the student section for the Apple Cup, which was, I think the year he did that was 96. That was the overtime Chad Carpenter out of bounds by 2 inches game. But even then, he's a pretty good sport. Even with me now, he's very kind. He could give me way more shit than he does. So I do appreciate that. And yeah, my favorite dad's weekend memory. So in 97, the Rose Bowl year, Southeast Louisiana State was the dad's weekend opponent.
Oh, beautiful.
And so my dad came over for Dad's weekend. The only thing was I was the editor of the Evergreen and one of the football beat writers. And so I spent the game in the press box. And if I remember right, the weather wasn't really great either. And so anyway, and we absolutely, completely pasted them. I think we scored 77, and we could have scored 107 if we'd wanted to. And so I was up in the press box for the first 3 quarters, and my dad, just dutifully sat at the game by himself, while we murdered, Southeast Louisiana. At least I think that's what they were at the time. They are Louisiana Lafayette now, but anyway, so he sat out there by himself. I joined him for the fourth quarter, and so we got to sit together for a quarter and watch. I don't know. I think by that time Steve Birnbaum was in the game. So, and then I distinctly remember that Southeast Louisiana scored a touchdown, and everybody who was left anyway cheered loudly, and it wasn't even like mockingly. Like they were just like really happy for these guys who were just getting completely slaughtered. It was one of those like, yo, we've been there, we've been bad, and USC has destroyed us. So, yay, you got a touchdown. That's awesome. It probably sounded patronizing to the other team, but it really wasn't all that patronizing. So anyway, so that's my dad's weekend story. How about you?
Yeah. The only one that my dad went to with me that they won was my freshman year in 2003. It was I remember him coming in on Friday, and it was a wild thing. It was first. I think I'd been back like once home, maybe. I don't know. I don't know I'd been back yet, but my roommate Nick was from Colton, so he was nice enough to go stay with his parents for the weekend, and let my dad stay in the dorm room, and which I don't know if you want to sleep in that bed, but Nick was a pretty clean guy. It's probably fine. But he also stayed at his girlfriend's quite a bit, so probably was barely used anyway. But anyway, so my dad, it was pretty fun. Like it was the Oregon State game when there was I think like 15 combined turnovers. And Steven Jackson, the Cougs held him down pretty well, but it was just a wild game. The Cougs came back from like 11 down in the second half and won. I remember Kyle Bosler, they were up by 8, and so they were just running out the back of the end zone to take a safety at the end of the game to waste time. Bosler was running around holding the ball up. We were all terrified that he was going to drop it and Oregon State was going to recover it. So I think the end of the score ended up being like 36-30 or something. I think that would have been a bad beat. I think WSU was favored by 7 in that game.
Yeah.
So that was a bad beat. But that was a ton of fun. My dad just had a blast. I remember they were doing like pictures. And at the bookie, and so we got our picture taken, and this is when my parents were still together, and my dad goes, "This is going to make your mom cry. I'm going to give it to her for Christmas." And it was so funny. When she opens the picture on Christmas, she starts crying, and me and my dad bust out laughing, and she's like, "Why are you laughing?"
Like, why are you laughing at me?
That's exactly what would happen when we got to take it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
it was a blast. And then he just came. My mom came to a lot of them too. I remember they went that USC dad's weekend when it hailed and it was cold. I remember they left at halftime, went back to my house and stuff. But yeah, it was a lot of.
Do not blame them.
Yeah, dad's weekends, man. All right.
Well, and of course, as we all know, the real action on dad's weekend is at the bars.
Yeah,
and fraternity houses. Yeah. So. Oh man.
Yeah, they were a little different once I was old enough to drink, or old enough to go to the bar.
Yeah, that's a completely different sight to behold right there. Yeah. Watching dads and college age girls and yeah.
Yeah,
gets to be both like fascinating to watch and also sort of repulsive all at the same time. So yeah. Anyway,
so
dad's weekend.
This dad's
Stanford.
Weekend, we're playing Stanford. This is our Stanford preview. Figured we'd reminisce on some dad's weekend since it is dad's weekend. Good thing about dad's weekend, always a good crowd, as you said, Jeff. It'll be a full crowd. The tickets are sold out, I believe, because when they sent out the email about all the events this weekend, all the other events said buy tickets here, and there was not a link for the football game to buy tickets. So I assume it's sold out. Yeah, you got I think the lowest StubHub price I saw was about $70. So pretty good. Pretty hot ticket. But yeah, so Stanford having in maybe not Pac-12 wise, but overall an equally shitty season as we are. Disappointing season. I think a lot of us with Stanford probably, well, I don't think any of us thought they were going to be this bad, just like we didn't think WSU could. I think just because of the coaches of both teams, we didn't think either team could be this bad. We kind of, it was hard believing that WSU can get to 8 wins or 8 or 9 wins, and hard to believe that Stanford couldn't get to 9 or 10 wins because of David Shaw. But this is just they've both kind of had some tough luck years. Stanford's had a hell of a schedule, for sure. Probably the toughest schedule in the conference, and at least non-conference. WSU probably can say that for the conference schedule. I would say WSU's probably had the toughest conference schedule.
When you figure in the road games that they've had to play, for sure.
So yeah, both some bad luck, both teams. Big part of it is Stanford's had some really bad quarterback injury luck. Costello has missed a few games. Their backup is pretty capable, but he's also missed a few games, so they had to go to Jack West, their third stringer, who was not good against UCLA. And but I think that Costello might play. Shaw says he was questionable, and then but he Davis is his first name. Davis Mills is the backup, and he's actually played better than Costello this year. So I know it's dumb to say, given how well Costello has played against us, but I kind of wouldn't mind having an injured Costello over a healthy Davis Mills, because Davis Mills is averaged about 2 yards per pass more, and Davis Mills is the guy that beat UW. So
yeah, and he's Costello's not also throwing to 7 feet tall centers in the end zone.
Right,
he doesn't have those kinds of targets to throw to anymore, and he seems to have not maybe adjusted to not having those kinds of guys to throw to for the most part. The passing game obviously not as explosive as it was with Arcega-Whiteside when he was thrown to him. So yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know which I would prefer, to be honest. On the one hand, I'm like, I think I'd probably rather have the less experienced guy, but on the other hand, maybe the less experienced guy is actually more talented, and so I don't know.
Yeah, I think Davis Mills is a 5-star recruit out of high school.
Well, I can check that.
I'm looking it up.
Davis Mills, 24/7, pro-style quarterback.
He was number 1 pro-style quarterback. 15th
Wow.
ranked overall nationally.
That's pretty good.
0.9918 rating.
Yeah.
And he hasn't beaten out KJ Costello.
Safe to say we have never had a quarterback rated that high. Any recruit rated that high.
Yeah. I don't think Gordon touched the 5-star rating.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have. But Davis Mills, obviously there's talent there. And
no doubt.
I don't know. I don't know who I want to start either. I don't want to lean. I know I'm leaning Costello probably. I think Costello probably will. I think Shaw's going to go with Costello if he's even.
I mean, he'll be the guy if he's healthy. I don't think there's any.
If he's even.
I don't think there's
close.
any question if he's healthy.
If he's close to healthy, I think he'll start.
Yeah.
Shaw's not going to put a guy that's won as many games for him as Costello has, and
Costello didn't exactly light the place up 2 years ago either. So
no, and he did not light the place up against Colorado, one of the worst defenses in the entire country, worse than WSU's defense last week. So
how bizarre was that?
That was very bizarre. That I was not expecting. So they struggled there. I will say, you were talking about explosiveness. There is one pretty terrifying player that they have, and that is Simi Fehoko. He's only caught 12 passes this year, but he's got 4 touchdowns, and he's averaging almost 30 yards a catch. He has 3 different 90-yard games where he's only had 3 catches.
Oh, don't worry about it. Our defensive secondary is in great shape.
They're at full strength, right? They should be good.
I mean, more or less, right? Like, it's not like we just had 2 guys kicked off the team or anything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't just have a starting cornerback.
Oh, shit. We did have 2 guys just kicked off the team. Including a starting corner.
Starting cornerback Daniel Isom. And,
God damn it.
And probably one of our more athletic secondary guys, Trey Davis, kicked off the team.
Yeah.
So, it was already a very deep position.
Yeah. They were performing so well that, you figure you can absorb, losing a guy.
No, yeah. Yeah, that sucks. But what else would happen this season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is, we're on that train of just like crazy dumb shit happening everywhere.
Yeah. So they're gone. Davis, very short-lived WSU career. Got eligible this year as a freshman, which we got excited about. Had some nice, he looked pretty decent, as a freshman. But he's already gone. He transferred from USC, and he's already gone. Isom obviously just came in as a junior college player, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Leach usually doesn't screw around with things, and unless it's something we have seen players reinstated before, but who knows? But they're obviously not going to be playing this weekend. So George Hicks is going to get a ton of run at corner. I think at the time he's been one of our better corners usually, but he hasn't been the guy out there every single play.
Yeah.
So now he's going to have to do that because I don't know who else is going to play.
It seems like that's probably the direction, right? Is that so where Hicks has been rotating in with some guys instead, now, okay, it's him and Strong, and they're just going to roll with that.
Well, and WSU, basically ended up with a similar situation because of Sean Harper's injury last year, where they were rotating guys in. They were rotating Moulton in, but then Moulton just became a full-time starter and almost played the entire game.
Right.
Him and Strong last year. So,
yep.
So we're back at this position again. I don't think Hicks is a huge drop-off from Isom. I don't even know if he's even a drop-off at all. But just the fact that a guy has to be out there snap after snap after snap, doesn't get a breather, that definitely makes a difference. I don't know if you notice, corners run a lot. So,
they do.
Yeah.
They do run a lot. So, yeah, I don't know if there are other guys they will try to work in or if they'll just try to ride these guys. I imagine they'll try to ride them, but
yeah, well,
who knows?
So it seemed like they were some observations were maybe they were going with Travion Brown, maybe in the nickel a little last week, and then Pat Nunn was maybe getting a little more run. So I don't know if they'd move Armani Marsh back over to corner.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah,
I think that's something they could do.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me.
But regardless, Stanford has some okay receivers. They've been nothing super special. The scariest guy is the Fehoko guy because he can get loose, and it seems like WSU always gives up big plays. So we saw that against Cal, a team that doesn't ever have big plays. So yeah. And their Stanford is surprisingly not that great of a running game this year.
Is it that surprising though? I mean, they haven't had a good running game in years.
Yeah, but there's no. I mean, they don't have the break that sort of breakaway player. Love obviously didn't play that much last year,
right?
But he was still there and he was still a threat, and he even made a couple plays against WSU, but didn't make that one play he needed to, fourth down. But
that's right.
But he made a couple plays last year. He was obviously used sparingly, but this year they really, their best guy is averaging a little over, I think under 5 yards a carry, or he's carrying the bulk of the load. It seems Austin Jones, the freshman, has been getting more carries in recent games, so we'll probably see him a little more. But yeah, Cameron Scarlett's the main guy, and I don't know, he's just like, it seems more like a bruiser, big guy, but not the breakaway, which is good for us, because really the defense has been decent when you get closer to the end zone, and Stanford has been really bad when you get closer to the end zone.
Well, there's a pretty obvious explanation there, right? You can no longer torch them for 60 yards once you get 20 yards from the end zone. You don't have to worry about anybody going over the top of you anymore. It's not,
if you miss a tackle, there's another guy right there.
Yeah, there's another guy actually pretty close by. Yeah. So it's not the end of the world. I don't know. I mean, I kid, but it's also sort of serious. And I mean, that's, again, we've referred to the speed D philosophy plenty, and so much of that was make the other team work their way down the field. Don't give up explosives, and if they have to make 10, 11, 12, 13 plays, after a while, chances are pretty good that they're going to screw up at some point.
And I will say, I've been watching these numbers all year, and I think they've been improving. Obviously, they were. I mean, there wasn't a lot of scoring opportunities in the first two games because those teams just didn't move the ball that much. But I think they've been, they've been holding steady or improving as they've been playing better offensive teams. Or, of course, they didn't last week, but
not last week.
So there is something to that, and Stanford has been god awful. They're only 38% of their drives they score a touchdown when they get inside the 40. That's not good. Obviously, you and I know that David Shaw is pretty conservative, so I feel like that plays a factor. He does not go for it even on like 4th and 2s. Of course, he'll probably maybe he seems desperate to beat WSU, so maybe he'll finally start doing that. I don't know.
I doubt it. That's a guy who's really committed to his philosophy. He is all in on the play conservative and trust my kicker, and we're gonna trust the defense. And I mean, he's very much coaching the team he wishes he had, and not the team that he does have for the last few years.
Well, sometimes when you have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, that works out fine.
But. Yeah, it works out great because he saves you repeatedly.
But he doesn't have that.
No.
You mentioned the kicker. Obviously, Stanford for years, it seems like for a decade, has had Jet Toner as the kicker.
Yes,
the unforgettable name, and he's been super good. But he's hurt out for the season.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yeah, and so their punter is doing the field goal kicking. He's 4 of 5 so far, but he hasn't kicked anything over 40, and he missed a 32-yarder against Colorado.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that Shaw would be pushing out to the 45, 50-yard field goals like he would with Jet Toner. And so if you can force them into like a 4th and 4 from the 37, they might punt the ball. Or, from the 32 even. I don't know what.
Yeah,
See, that one thing, that kind of scares me. It's
the 32-yard line and...
But do you think he would punt from there? Would he actually be like, no, I'm going to go for it on 4th and 4, or would he be like, no, we need to punt to get that 12 yards of field position?
Maybe he has a pooch kick in there that he would use.
Definitely. Costello's definitely.
He seems like a pooch kick kind of guy. Him and Peterson.
Oh, Peterson loves it. Oh, there's a giant spider walking at my wall right now.
Ooh, nice.
I'll let him play around for a while.
Yeah. I don't know, like with their offense, the biggest thing that is sort of amazing about what's happened, like just sort of their program in general, the way that it seemed like they were entering perennial contender category, right? Like it seemed like that's where they were. That was where they were going to live, and you go, well, look, Stanford can recruit all these guys who fit in a very specific box, and you offer them the Stanford education, and they're going to be able to do this and that. And then, like the last few years, it's sort of been this steady decline, and they haven't fallen all the way off, really. And we can say that they've fallen off this year, but there's still, a few games to go. So, it's possible that, in the end, they still end up with their 8 wins or 9 wins, and we just go.
They can't get to 9.
Well, they could with a bowl game.
No, they couldn't.
Don't they have 5 wins right now, or am I wrong?
4. They have 4 and 5.
Okay. All right. My bad. But anyway, it's possible to get to 8 wins, and we just go, okay, there's another 8 wins, even in a down year, right? It's unlikely. I mean, they're going to play Notre Dame, and they'll be a decided underdog in that game, and they're obviously an underdog this weekend. But I think the two things that you notice is, and we're going to talk about their defense in a minute, so I won't talk too much about that. But their defense just hasn't been scary for years. And then they don't run the ball like they used to. And, it's almost like the game has sort of changed around them, and they haven't really adjusted. Because, the last couple of years, about the only thing that made their run game that they leaned on so much, made it so explosive, was really Bryce Love when he was healthy.
Right.
And when he was hurt, whoever they brought in wasn't, nearly as explosive. And that's the big thing, right? It wasn't that their running game was, like so effective in some kind of, average 4 yards a gain kind of way. It was effective because it was explosive, right? So, I mean, you look at the series of running backs that they had. I mean,
let's be honest, no run game is effective if averages just 4 yards a gain.
Sure, but you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
What I'm saying is that their running backs were home run threats.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was
Love, McCaffrey, Gerhardt.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That was the secret sauce. It wasn't that they had, guys who were, good running backs who, gained 5.5 yards a carry or something like that. You know what I mean? But they had guys who, whenever they touched the ball, you were worried that they were going to bust one for 50, 60, 70 yards. And the run game was like that, right? So you had these, crazy, strong, awesome linemen who were blowing open holes, and they just haven't had that for a few years, which is wild because they keep recruiting the same caliber of linemen. It's not like the recruiting has dropped off. They're just not doing what they used to do. And so somebody smarter than me with, better scheme knowledge could probably speak to why, but I do wonder if, WSU, for example, was onto something against them with, our smaller, faster front that just absolutely annihilated them, the last couple of years, and kept them from running the ball. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely been sort of fascinating to watch that program sort of slide a little bit as the defense has dropped off, and then as that run game has, not been nearly as explosive. So
yeah, and they definitely don't rely on the run. Like they're passing the ball 56% of the time.
Yeah,
now.
total. Versus I don't know what their high water mark for run percentage was, but it had to be at least 50-50.
Right.
Back in the day. So.
Yeah, it's more of like what we saw from Stanford against WSU last year when they were slinging the ball around.
Yep.
They just don't have the wide receiver talent that they had last year. But yeah, summarization. I'm hoping that the Cougs can bend not break. I'm resigned to the fact that Fehoko is going to score like an 80-yard touchdown, but just hopefully it's only one. Just one, please. Yeah. And then the rest of the time, just force Shaw into some awkward decisions in the 25 to 35, and hopefully it turns out for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. WSU's defense is so bad, you just never know, man.
Yeah, they'll probably. I mean, we can safely assume Stanford will be in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can just assume that.
I mean, upper 20s at least. Yeah. It depends on how they manage the clock.
Yeah, that's true. And how many short fields we give them.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah. which Cal got plenty of those.
Cal got plenty of those. So, I don't know. Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. And then we'll talk some offense.
We're back. Let's talk offense.
So yeah, before we get into this, did you see the SP Plus estimation for this game, the projection?
I have not actually seen it. I just saw what you wrote about it.
Yeah,
it was 19 points.
42-23 Cougs.
That's insane. Yeah. I'm sorry. I have no idea what that system is thinking.
But
I also think it's amazing that the system actually likes us now.
I know. Well, the crazy thing is, it likes us. We I think it had us 12-point favorites against Cal, but it had us 12-point underdogs against Oregon, and it had us like 15-point favorites against Colorado. So if you look at the last 3 games, it's twice they've totally blown it away.
Right.
And so it's like maybe there's another one of those coming because they're not playing freaking Justin Wilcox. I don't know.
And they're at home, and that always
they're at home,
helps.
and a lot. It's been a like they played one home game in the last 2 months. Thank you, Pac-12.
Right.
Obviously the bye weeks have been fine, but like it's like I feel like I have season tickets and I've barely been in Martin Stadium recently. Like,
yeah. Yep. And you've gone to all of them.
I've gone to every game.
It's not like you skipped any of them.
Took a vacation.
Yeah.
I was grateful for that, but so Stanford's defense, as you said earlier, it's not it's not great. It's not as daunting as it has been in historically, recent history. Just not the force that it used to be with devastating linebackers and NFL caliber defensive backs and big fat defensive linemen. It's just not that anymore. Like they're average at best, honestly. And so that obviously you combine their offense has been struggling in the red zone, and then you have a defense that is only average, and then you have this 4-5 team. I think there's so a stat I put in my preview. WSU is 3rd nationally in passing success rate, so that means they are ahead of the chains constantly. Like one of the best teams in the country when they're throwing the ball, being on track for a first down. Stanford is 120th in passing success rate allowed. So if you're looking for WSU's advantage, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's just 8 to 12 yard chunks of yardage down the field.
Yep.
And this is Brandon Arconado and Aesop Winston big catch game. I think that, again, the Stanford's pretty good at explosive passing, and we have been less good, way less. Like we did it a lot in the non-conference. Haven't got a lot of nearly as many explosive passing plays in the conference season, but we've still been very good at staying ahead of the chain. So like you saw against Cal, even when we moved the ball, it was long drives. Like it was taking up a lot of time. So I'm thinking it's going to look a lot like that. A lot of Brandon Arconado, a lot of Aesop Winston on 3rd down, stuff like that. Hopefully, Patman or Tay or Renard or Travell can break a big one, but I'm thinking it's going to be some crawl. But I also think that they can move the ball pretty well against these guys, which is they can't against most teams except for 2 this year. But so I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, it's I think the biggest difference that it seems like over the last few years that they've struggled with defensively is that they didn't have those big meatheads up front that would just sort of destroy you. Right. We think back to games we had against Stanford before we had this win streak, and it seemed like our quarterbacks were just always getting just pummeled. Yeah. That game in Seattle, right? The popcorn guy game. That's kind of the one that sticks out the most, right? Because Jeff Toole gets knocked, or was it Connor Halliday gets knocked out of the game, right? And then Austin Apodaca gets murdered, and you're just, anyway, it was, just quarterbacks under constant pressure from these linemen and linebackers. They were running I assume a 3-4 back in the day. I don't know if they still run that or not, but they always had these outside linebackers, these guys who were, 6'4", 6'3", 240, 250 pounds.
Given that a linebacker leads them in sacks, I assume they still run a 3-4.
That would make sense. Yeah. So, but it seems like this year that they're still doing that, but they just don't have the talent on the back end that they they used to have. So they're back to, having some guys who can get pressure, but maybe they don't cover as tight. I mean, you mentioned that, they don't give up a ton of explosives, but they give up lots of success, which is sort of indicative of a team that knows maybe they're not as talented in the back end. They're going to play off a little bit, concede some things in front of them to make sure they don't get beat over the top. So and also some good news. Their best cornerback is not playing, Paulson Adebo. Yep.
However you say that, Adebo.
Close enough. For the purposes of our podcast.
Yeah. And then their starting free safety might also be out, Malik Antoine. So they might be as thin in the back end as WSU is. And that's always a good sign for WSU, obviously, because we're going to throw the ball a ton. Yep.
Yeah, I think we should have plenty of success throwing the ball. The big thing is, as has been all year, is, can we stay away from killer mistakes, right? Can we stay away from, penalties in the red zone? Can we stay away from, dropping the ball on a, like after we've caught it? Can we not fumble it? All those things. I mean, really, truly the only thing that has slowed us down this year, other than the Utah game, really the only thing that has slowed us down is ourselves.
Right.
And that includes last weekend. Last weekend. I mean, that's, it wasn't like, it was that we were skating up and down the field and turning it over last weekend, but we were certainly, moving the ball. There were outside of the first couple drives, we started to move it, and
Anthony Gordon threw for over 400 yards.
Yeah. So. I mean, he ended up throwing over 400 yards, and, so it's not like we were completely impotent. We just, stalled out in the red zone, had turnovers, and that's going to be the stuff that we really can't do this weekend. So definitely I think there's a good chance for that.
Definitely got to avoid throwing it at the back judge.
Yeah. Don't throw it at the umpire.
The umpire.
Yeah. Don't throw it, in that area, because, goodness knows you can't expect that guy to get out of the way.
So we got to get every call this week, right?
I would think so. After last weekend, they should just every call. They should be just making stuff up.
I saw John Milner mention that.
They still owe us for the Christian McCaffrey fumble back in 2015 anyway.
This is definitely a streak that I'd very much like us to continue going.
Yeah, especially when, you got David Shaw basically crying last year after the game because it's bumming him out so much that he can't figure out how to beat Wazoo.
Lowly Wazoo.
Yeah, it feels absolutely great to watch Stanford, flail away at trying to figure out how to beat us. So, yeah, I'd like to keep this one going too for many reasons, but that one's not primary, but it's definitely it's in the list for sure of reasons why I'd like to win this game.
So, for when Borgie does his 10 runs. They're 117th in rushing success rate and 120th in yards per rush allowed. But they do make some big plays. They're good and pretty decent in stuff rate. So they'll stop guys behind the line a few times. And then they're pretty good in short yardage runs. So that's something to look out for.
The key is to be selective there.
Yep. Yeah, be selective, which Gordon typically is, but he hasn't always been the best at selecting the best times to run. So hopefully he can hit those right ones, and they continue moving the ball. I say just keep throwing the damn ball.
I'm down with that.
I mean, they're probably gonna have two starters out in the secondary. Throw the ball. Get Borgie his touches in the passing game.
Yeah.
The weather's going to be good. It's going to be a nice day, about as good as you can expect in the middle of November. So just sling that ball around, and let's have Gordo throw for 500 and 4 touchdowns. Sounds pretty good.
I'm down with that.
All right, man.
Prediction time.
Yeah. Always fun. Always our favorite part. We've been so good at it.
Oh my God, we are the worst. It's so funny too, because we're both like totally optimistic, and we haven't been beaten down yet, right? Which is amazing. Wait till we get to the Apple Cup predictions. I think we'll be appropriately pessimistic about that one.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you go first as always.
All right. I'm gonna go 42-38 Cougs.
All right.
I figure 0 chance we cover. And
what is it? It's about 10.5 right now. Is it still about 10.5?
Yeah, I haven't looked. Here, I'll look really quick. But it opened at 12. It quickly dropped, which was sort of hilarious because I was like, well, yeah, I can't believe that was it. Like, if I had been in Vegas, I'd be like, yo, I'll take Stanford plus 12 and put my mortgage on it, right? So it looks like Stanford. Looks like it's actually crept back up a little bit. Some places it's 11, some places it's 11.5, some places it's 10.5. So it looks like about 11's about the median. So yeah, 11 points. Like I just can't fathom winning by a touchdown and a half. So.
Wow.
So I'll go ahead and say Cougs like by 4 in a high scoring game. Might take little last minute magic, and I think that's something that's possible. Playing at home again. So.
Well, I think David Shaw is going to deliver some field goals for us, and that will on some 4th and 3s when he definitely should go for it. So I'm going to say that that will help the Cougs actually maybe nearly cover. So I'm going to go maybe cover 38-27 Cougs.
So you got 2 field goals.
Yeah, 2 field goals in there, 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
Those 2 field goals will end up biting him in the ass late. So
yeah, I feel it. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Let's win a fucking football game.
God, that'd be nice. That's the worst part about these 1:30 kickoffs is like if it doesn't go well, like my day is just fucked.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
I'm just like, well,
at least I'll be in Pullman. So I gotta be in Pullman. So.
Yeah, so I mean, if they lose and you're there, yeah, you're gonna be pissed, but you also get to hang out and drink beer after the game. I get to go back to grading essays. After that, so I'd much rather be grading essays when I'm happy than after a loss. So that's kind of my take on it.
My take is I need to stop doing these previews because they always get me very positive. Because the stats always
you always
so
find
good.
all the reasons why we should be successful, and then
and Stanford just isn't very good.
Yeah.
Cal wasn't very good either.
Hey,
but Colorado wasn't very good, and look how
that's true. Out. Colorado wasn't very good, and we destroyed them. So, yeah.
And they just beat Stanford. So, fingers crossed.
Transitive property.
All right, man.
We should beat Stanford by at least like 8 touchdowns. No, I'm just kidding.
And then we did. No. All right, man.
Okay, dude.
Go Cougs.
Have fun in Pullman.
I will. Go Cougs.